they go to the range. I think Monday rained. So it was kind of a hard day to test. But Adrian had brought out, I think 2 options with the red. I think one, it was like a 9-degree head and then a 10-5 with different tipping. So the way that they tip those shafts, the Ventus red shafts that Tommy has been playing, is they actually tip them 1.5 inches because the tip is so soft that they try to make them soft but slightly stiffer than you would normally feel. And that's just to get that feel of stability for Tommy at the bottom. I know this is super heady stuff, but gearheads like to know this stuff. I'm just giving you the full scoop. Okay, welcome to episode 291 of the Fully Equipped podcast. You got me Han Solo this week. Kudos to K-Mac and Jack Hirsch for taking the baton last week and doing a great job on the show. We are in Dallas this week for Live Dallas over at Maridoe Golf Club. As you can see on my hat, we were there yesterday. Today is, what's today? Today's Wednesday. So we got a pretty big day of content planned for today. But the show must go on, as you know. Big last few weeks in golf with the U.S. Open and J.J. Spaun winning. And then obviously you had Ryan Fox the week before. And then this week at, I guess last Sunday at Travelers with Keegan Bradley winning. As you can tell, it's from an equipment standpoint, is big 3 weeks for Srixon. Unbelievable 3 weeks for Srixon. And we're going to get into that, some of the nuances of Keegan Bradley's bag and some of the fun stuff that's going on there. But gotta say it out loud. Nothing against Keegan Bradley. I was pretty gutted that Fleetwood, who I've come to know over the last few years, is just a beautiful human being, unbelievable human being, and his caddy Ian Finnis. I was gutted for those guys. I know how hard all these guys work, but being close to the Fleetwood camp and getting to know them fairly well, I really wanted to see him break through, because I think he's one of those guys that if he learns how to win on the U.S., then he's going to win a bunch of times. He's just got that caliber of game. Super gutted to see. I mean, obviously the putt, it's been shown 5,000 times it hit a ball mark or a spike mark or whatever it hit, and it kicked it dead off the line. I don't know if that was, I don't know. That sucked. The whole thing sucked. But, congrats to Keegan. Obviously, there's this discussion about, the Ryder Cup now, if he's going to be a player captain, if they're going to allow him to do that, if that's even an option. Where I sit is, if the guy's playing good, you put the 12 best players out there. It's, challenging to captain and play at the same time. If anybody can pull it off, I think Keegan's kind of got the vibe to do it. But that'll be an interesting discussion going forward. It gives us all something to talk about as we get closer and closer to Bethpage Black. Geez, I need more coffee. For the Ryder Cup this year, which is going to be insane. It's going to be insane. So anyway, bummed for Tommy. Bummed for Finnis. He'll be back. His press conference afterwards, true professional, get in there with some humility and grace. And anyway, Tommy will be there. And I root for Tommy, obviously, because of the way the human being that he is, but also from an equipment standpoint, he's just a fascinating creature to follow, has been forever. If you guys followed me back at WRX, I wrote 2 or 3 big articles on Tommy and his bag when he signed with TaylorMade, all that stuff. I've already done a pretty deep divey one for golf.com. He's just a really interesting guy, and he's one of those players that he kind of reminds me of like Charles Howell a little bit, where he doesn't want to leave any stone unturned, and he really wants to know if there's a distinct advantage for him to get better every week. It's not year in, year out. It's literally week to week. That he's always working with Adrian Riedfeld, trying to find out, what's going on. Case in point, last week, he switched driver and mini driver shafts, which is an interesting story. You don't look, this is where I sit on shafts, and I get this question a lot in my Friday AMAs. Shafts are a timing mechanism, like full stop. They are a timing mechanism. So when you see them marketed as Tour X, this one's low spin, low launch. This one's high spin, whatever the profile of the shaft is. Ultimately, it's going to come down to the player and how you deliver the golf club. So for all you people out there listening that kind of want to know what shaft I should try, that's why I will always recommend you got to go to a fitter and you got to try a bunch of them. The most important thing for a shaft, in my opinion, is strike point. If you can find a shaft that you can time up that gets the center of the club face on the back of the ball, that's where you should start going. Because at that point, especially when it comes to like driver, mini driver, 3-woods, all that stuff, you can move the head around to get the spin and the launch, and you can move weights around to get center of gravity in a good spot. But ultimately, like center face contact based on your delivery and based on timing is kind of what you want. So beginning of the year, Tommy Fleetwood switches, goes from Ventus Blue TR that he had in his QI10 and his Mini into these Ventus Red Velo Plus products. Tom McKibben did it as well. There was kind of like a weird trend at the beginning of the year with a lot of players trying the red profiles. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you're going to hear this term a lot, staying on top of the ball, which essentially means like, you're rotating, your chest is on top of the ball and you're kind of covering it. And you hear Tiger talk about that a lot. And from a fitting aspect, and when you're out on a tour driving range or you're working with players, theoretically, I say most of the time what that means is that the players are trying to sort of battle that big angle of attack that's like way up, 5 or 6 up with the driver. So in simple terms, they're trying to swing their driver and their mini drivers closer to how they would swing an iron versus having a driver swing, which you would see with like Bryson or Rory McIlroy or something like that tends to hit up way up on the driver, 4, 5, 6 degrees angle of attack up to get the launch. Then you're living in a world closer to Xander or another player that really covers the ball and wants their angle of attack to be a little bit more zeroed out. The reason why players like to do that is because although you can really gain distance and you can get launch and launch up and spin down when you start to hit up on it, that's kind of like the modern driver golf swing. It can get a little unruly. And as tour golf, the golf courses, the way that they're making it in some of these rough lines that they're starting to cut out at 320, 330 controls at a premium. And it's a lot easier to control the golf ball if your angle of attack's in a more neutral spot. It just is. So what Ventus Red does, or any red profile, essentially allows you to make that, angle of attack swing at 0 or 1 or 2 or whatever the angle of attack is. I mean, just a less angle of attack. How do you say that? I don't know, more zeroed out angle of attack. What these red products will do, because the tip of those shafts is typically whippy. Usually the profile of a red shaft is like a really stiff handle and a really whippy tip. So if you look at a shaft and it's like, it's handle stiff and then it gets progressively whippier as you get down to the tip of the shaft. What it allows you to do is stay on top of the ball. The ball still wants to launch and the spin still wants to stay down. So you kind of get the best of both worlds. So he went to those shafts in the beginning of the year and he's had a great year. I think he's had 5 or 6 top 10s this year. I don't have the stats in front of me, but Tommy's had a great year. And he's been driving the ball really, really well. The problem was the driver, so the QI35 driver, which he really likes, he loves, and he has learned that he needs loft for control. So I remember when he started with, 5, 6, 7 years back, his driver loft went down to like 6.5, 7 degrees. He got way down there. So now he's in a 10.5 head that's opened up like a degree. And I think I've mentioned this before, but the way that tour heads work is they're not, just because it says 10.5 at -1 or whatever the number is, it doesn't necessarily mean it's exactly at 9 degrees or 9.5 degrees. It could be 9.8, 9.9. It depends on the head that Adrian pulls out of the drawer. So he's playing with more loft. And the reason why he needs more loft is because it's control. It ensures that the spin's going to be in a good spot. But what he was finding was that the driver wasn't, I don't want to say it wasn't going as far, but from a distance standpoint, it wasn't as efficient. And the mini driver was kind of the same way. So the mini driver was starting to creep up and get pretty close to the driver. So I think the way that it works is that he wasn't hitting the mini driver as straight. He was hitting it further, but not as straight. And he was hitting the driver, wasn't getting out as far. So like call it, 2 yards shorter with one, and maybe a yard or a yard and a half longer with the other one, but not as much control. The mini driver for Tommy has to be his go-to. I can hit this in the fairway club. And as the year has gone on, it hasn't been as guaranteed as it was maybe last year. So they get to Travelers, and they start, after US Open, and I think he missed the cut at the US Open. I don't know. I haven't looked at the stats. I probably should, but he didn't feel as that he was driving the ball with both of those clubs as well. So they started kind of looking at shafts. So what Adrian did was Adrian brought out options in red and then going back to his old shaft in this TR blue. So the story with the red also was that he plays a Kurakagi in his 5-wood and his 9-wood, which is a similar profile to red. It's got a stiff handle and gets progressively kind of softer as you go down, not to the extremes that the red does, but it's the same kind of feel. That was another bonus of going to that shaft earlier in the year, was the fact that it was a similar feel. So the shafts kind of marry up from driver to 9-wood. But at some point, if it's not working exactly how you want it to work, you have to make some adjustments. So they go to the range. I think Monday rained. So it was kind of a hard day to test. But Adrian had brought out, I think 2 options with the red. I think one, it was like a 9-degree head and then a 10-5 with different tipping. So the way that they tip those shafts, the Ventus red shafts that Tommy has been playing, is they actually tip them 1.5 inches because the tip is so soft that they try to make them soft but slightly stiffer than you would normally feel. And that's just to get that feel of stability for Tommy at the bottom. I know this is super heady stuff, but gearheads like to know this stuff. I'm just giving you the full scoop. So what what Adrian did was Adrian went and got the Ventus Red Velo Plus TX part, which has got it's a lower torque part. And I always say that those TX parts in the Ventus, they're kind of pre-tipped. They're already pretty tip stiff. So for the most part, like Sam Burns plays that shaft in his driver, and I think they put it straight in. I don't think they need to tip it because it's already pretty tip stiff. But Adrian still tipped this shaft, this new one. I think he tipped it 1/2 inch or 1 inch, again, just to recreate that feel and see if that gave him the ball speed that he was looking for and kind of, got him in a good place. But what happened was Tommy wanted to try the TR Blue just to see, because he had drove it so well last year. So they put the TR Blue in there, 6X, tip it 1 inch. And it goes in the driver, and right away, the ball speed started to go up a little bit, and carry starts to go out of there a little bit. Do the same experiment with the mini driver, and dispersion starts to get a little tighter. Everything starts to kind of go back to where he was. And you have to keep in mind that the heads that they're playing, that Tommy's playing, this QI35 actually lines up a lot better for him than the QI10 did. The reason why the QI10 wasn't as much of a seamless transition or easy to fit, I should say, is because of the weight configuration. So if you look at the QI10 head that Rory plays in Scheffler and that Tommy was playing last year, it's called a dot head, but it's got a weight in the heel. So it's got heel side CG. So what they're having to do to those heads for the most part is internally weight them. So move weight forward or move it out towards the toe or whatever it needs to go. In these QI35 heads, you have a weight in the back and a weight in front, and it's right down the middle of the driver. So for somebody like Adrian that's fitting these guys, it makes it really easy because the center of gravity starts off neutral. So it's designed to just go straight, which for tour fitters, that's pretty much what they want. I mean, you ask any tour fitter, where do you want these drivers to start when you start testing drivers with these guys? Can you just make it go straight, and then I can make it go left to right? So QI35, that's essentially what they did. So where he landed, QI35, 10.5. I think it's at -1. I think the head's actually at like 9.7 or 9.8. Ventus Blue TR 6X, I think it's tipped 1 inch. And then the mini driver, same drill. I think it's 43.5 inches long. He is at 13. He's at 13.5, but I think it's at -1.5. So I think it's closer to 12 degrees. I think he's got 2 3-gram weights in the back and he's got a 15 gram weight in the heel and a 10 gram weight out towards the toe. I think that's how it's configured. And obviously it worked because he drove the piss out of the ball first 3 rounds at Travelers. And so they're obviously working, and you can't use Sunday as a marker for whether or not this combo works, because pressure's up. He's nervous. He's trying to win his first tournament. He's got a lead. Adrenaline's pumping. He's in his head, whatever the circumstances are. But obviously the performance of that setup is there. So kudos to Adrian and Tommy for figuring that out. So, that's a situation where to normal people, it wouldn't feel like a huge switch, but on a tour range, what Tommy did was a pretty significant switch. It's not like switching out a ball, or it's not that big, but it's one of those small changes that really kind of sparks some good play. Typically, any change on tour, and I'm a big advocate for this, if it's creating a feel for a player where they really feel like they can swing freely and do what they want to do with the delivery, those changes seem to carry, if they really work, they actually kind of create momentum. Because a feel is something that you can kind of chase and you can kind of recreate. And it feels good, meaning it's like the data's not telling you it's right. Your body's telling you it's right. It's like, I feel like if I do this, the ball's going to end up there. And if I do this, the ball's going to go over there. Like that's when the players can match up the feel of a golf club with a window that they're looking for the ball to fly out of. That's big for them. It's kind of the same thing with Rombo when he switched into Ventus Black like a year and a half ago. It just felt right. Like he felt like he could swing as hard as he wanted, as hard left as he wanted, and the ball was going to start left and start to cut back to the right. It didn't matter what he did. He just knew that it was going to work. Those are feels. That's just not TrackMan or Quad telling you that. That's the player just going, no, I can trust this whip. Like if I snap it, it's going to do that. So again, the importance of getting fit is huge. Does every player need that level of nuance? No, but what I'm trying to convey to you guys and trying to make you understand is we all want to play good golf. Like everybody wants to play good golf. You want to play your best golf. One of the things that's required to play the best golf that you have is to have a bag and have a system that's efficient, that really works for you. So, when I get questions in the AMAs about what's the best low launch, combination, and I'm spinning in at 3,900 and I want to bring my spin down. Like these are all great questions. Like what it shows me is that you guys your head's in the right spot. Like you're trying to figure it out because you understand that the numbers need to do this and they need to look a certain way. But ultimately, like you need to find a fitter that's going to help you answer those questions. What I always try to stay away from, and it happens in the forums a lot, is people will say, have you guys ever tried this? Yeah, try this, because like if you're looking for this is your shaft. The point on shafts is that shafts work differently for everybody. So I know players, a ton of players, I can give them a Ventus Black tipped 1.5 inches, 7X, put it in a driver, and they'll spin the shit out of this thing. Like they'll spin it like crazy and they'll hit it straight up in the air. And then I'll give them a Ventus Red and they'll hit knee-high fastballs all day long, and vice versa for another player. So there's no rhyme or reason really to how all these components work. Again, with shafts, the most important thing for you guys out there, you find a shaft combination. This is for irons and for woods. Find one that you hit out of the middle first, because that shows me that you're timing it up. That means that your move and that golf club are in sequence. Then allow the fitter to go and do his thing or her thing or whatever. Like that's how this works. That's how they do it on tour. And that's why players tend to stick with shafts for a long time, because they find one that they hit out of the middle all the time. So if you go to like somebody, Patrick Cantlay, who's in ZF, is it ZF? Is that what it's called? Geez, I'm losing my mind. He's in that Diamante product, Xander's and PD, because they create a feel and they know that head to head, that shaft they're going to hit out of the middle. So what the fitters will do is they'll say, okay, I have this variable. It's not going to change. I'm going to mess with the CG of the head to make sure that it still times up with the shaft. As long as the shaft and that combo provide the numbers that we're looking for and gives my player the feedback, the ball flight, everything he's looking for. Like they want to ensure that that's still possible. So like if you want to go back to like the Rombo switch, and I'm sorry I'm going on a little bit tangent, but this is like good information. If you want to go back to the Rombo switch and like Tour Green, which was a shaft that he just loved, it wasn't working for him anymore. The feel was there, he hit it out of the middle, but the ball flight wasn't doing it anymore. Because what's happening with the heads is the heads progress and his golf swing progresses. Now at that point, you have to kind of start from scratch and go like, okay, I need to find a shaft that he trusts this much in the feels, but now gives us the numbers that we're looking for. And that's what ended up being Ventus Black. Anyway, sucks that Tommy lost. So I'm giving him 20 minutes on his shaft switch, but there you go. If you want to know what the numbers were for Tommy versus where he was trying to get the driver down into the 2400 RPMs range, like on his stock shots. And with the mini driver, he was trying to get it around 3000, 3100 RPMs. Because if the spin came down, then the carry distance and everything else starts to level itself out and the two clubs separate themselves. So the shaft switch achieved that. Bada bing, bada boom. He played great last week, and I'm assuming he's going to continue to for the rest of the year. I have a feeling that Tommy Fleetwood's going to make some noise at the playoffs. That's what I think. I think, come August, I think that's where he's really going to shine. So he's going to win this year. I just don't know when. I think he's going to win the Open, but TBD. Okay, so let's move on to this Srixon thing. I mean, how many wins they have? Hideki won, but with a V-Sol, but not with. Actually, I don't even know if his. Yeah, it's not this. It's close enough. He won. Sepp Straka won. Obviously, Novak won with Ben Griffin. I mean, I think they've had 7 wins this year. They've had a great year. Here's the thing with Srixon irons that I want to say it started in like 2018 or 9. I don't know the exact year, but they've always made good irons, and they were a smaller piece. And then over the last 4, 5, 6 years, they've just grown, and a lot of the momentum has taken place in the fitting bays. And I saw this firsthand. I used to go to TXG all the time, living in Toronto, and Ian and Mikey and those guys were there, and they'd be fitters. It'd be John Sawatsky and Ian would be in a bay, and hell, Mac Boucher worked there, and they'd be in a bay and they'd be doing their thing. And when it came to irons, these Srixons just kept getting into bags. So that's what kind of piqued my curiosity. And then as the years went on, 2019, 2020, 2021, these iron launches come out. And then you start to read the WRX forums and you start to kind of hear the buzz. There was so many players kind of just losing it on Srixon irons. And a lot of it had to do with the sole. So I'm going to explain why this V-Sole works so well. And then I'll get to Keegan and the rest of the guys. The reason why the V-Sole works so well is for steeper players. And we're going to talk specifically to the people that are in the fitting bays. We're going to leave Tour to the side for a second. The reason why it works so well for players in a fitting bay, and I'm talking like your +5s to your 20 handicaps. And if you're going to talk about the ZXi5 platform and the ZXi7 platform. So if you're going to go 7 and 5 in the Srixon lines, whatever year it is, they've kind of stayed the same. The one thing that hasn't changed in that line is the sole. And they'll never change it because they'd be idiotic if they changed out that sole. For really steep players, that sole is a cure-all. Because of the way that the sole is designed, you have a lot of bounce up front, and you have this nice rudder on the bottom, and you have a little bit of relief on the backside. That club is designed to get in and out of the turf quickly, no matter how steep you are. So if your angle of attack, if you're a shallow player, I would say it's not as awesome as it is if you're on the steeper side. Still works, still amazing. Because of the feel, the softness, it's just a great looking iron. But the steeper players, which basically represents most of the market when you go into a fitting bay, most players are a little bit on the steeper side. You don't see a lot of fathers of 2 going into TXG that are all shallowed out like Akshay Bhatia. Most of them are steep because that's more of it's just kind of where the club wants to go. They're either huge pickers, meaning they're popping out of it, or they're pretty good athletes and they're getting into the ball and the club's coming in vertically and it's, it's steep. That's just normal. So you give a player that's on the steeper side a Srixon iron, whether they're a 5 or a 7, immediately they're going to love it because of the way that the club is getting in and out of the turf. Even on mats, it works. It just works. I don't like it's a unicorn. And as you're seeing in the marketplace right now, I'm not going to say who, but if you look at enough pictures on my IG, or if you look enough pictures in WRX forums or any of the articles that Jack writes about tour players, you're going to start to see most of the soles across most of the OEMs are starting to get a little bit of front edge relief. Some of the soles are starting to get to this shape. If you saw those really cool blades that Minwoo Lee has in the bag, and go look at those soles, that's no accident. It's happening because that is a very, very effective way to make an iron. So what's happened in the past is when you make an MB or a player's cavity back, the idea is that better players want less bounce. They want a thinner sole, yada, yada, yada. The problem is that those get really, really diggy. They just do across the board. I remember when we launched, we meaning Callaway, when I was working there in 2023, we launched the Apex Pro Series, and there was an MB, a CB, and they should have just launched TCB. I don't know why they didn't. They should have just made that the one iron, and it would have killed. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. MB, CB, and the Apex Pro. The moment that a lot of the players on our staff got the MB and tried them, there was no bounce on those irons, and the leading edge was like a razor blade. It looked amazing. It looked cool. Make no mistake. It, like on the shelf, it looked beautiful. The issue is it had no bounce. It had no bounce to the point where if you bent it weak, it still didn't have enough bounce. And if you bent it strong, and had even less bounce. So the first reaction, I remember I was out in the driving range with Adam Svensson, and he's an MB player. He plays 2018 MBs. He hit it. And the 2018 MBs is where if you looked at Eric Van Rooyen's bag from back in the day, Svenny's bag, a lot of our blade players all went to that 18 blade. Why? Because it had bounce. It had a wider sole. It had bounce. The new ones, the 21s and the 23s, had a sole that was like that big. It had very, very little bounce. And you couldn't wiggle it around. Like you either played him at the design loft and went with God, or you're kind of fakakta. And immediately the divots just started to get really thick. And he's kind of looking at me and he's like, well, these are beautiful, but like these guys are, I'm digging holes here. So, obviously our tour guys, the Callaway Tour R&D people, like they take that feedback and go, okay, maybe it's time we start to pivot. And then you see this new one coming out that's being leaked. I have no idea if it's coming out or when it's coming out, but you're starting to see the sole bounce. You start to see the X Forge sole. If you look at it, like the ones that Phil are playing and the Hoy guards are playing, if you set it like this, you see the sole, it's like this. That's on purpose. That is, I don't want to say it's directly to mimic Srixon. Like I don't want to say that, but it's living in that ballpark now because that's what most players, good high handicaps and on tour want. They want bounce. Bounce gives you option, and bounce allows you to get the club through the turf. Turf interaction is so important with an iron. So to somebody like, hell, Ryan Fox is your prototype Srixon player. Absolute prototype. He's steep. He hits a big hold off cut, strong grip. Like he's prototype Srixon 7 player. So is Keegan Bradley. Keegan Bradley, not shallow by any stretch. Especially when he gets into 6, 7, 8, 9 wedge, he gets very steep. He beats down the ball. Srixon irons are absolutely amazing for a player like Keegan Bradley. So, interesting stuff. So if you guys are in the fitting bay, you should at least try Srixon irons. They should always be in the conversation because the 5s are great irons. They have a really, really good sole, but they're fast and they get up in the air. That's why you've seen every single set that you see out on tour will always have a 4 and a 5 iron in the ZXi5, and then the rest of the irons will be the 7s. Like Abe Answer does that. Abe Answer has a 4 hybrid. He's got a 5 and a 6 in the 5 series, and then he plays mirror irons on the way down. You're going to see a lot of that. Even yesterday, I was out in the driving range with Sam Horsfield. Today, Sam Horsfield is trying some Srixon 4 and 5 irons for that very reason. He loves how they get through the turf and they launch high and they get out there. And every player on tour, 4 and 5 iron, before look and all that other stuff, you know what they want? They all want the ball to go up in the air. That's what they want, because those are becoming, the longer these players are getting, 5 wood's becoming a key club for par fives, and 4 and 5 irons are becoming a key club for par fives. They just are, because they're hitting it further. Like, on tour, 5 iron is your 215 to 225 club now. 4 iron is your 220 to 240 club now. So that's living closer to like a 5 wood, and you're going to have that yardage into a lot of par fives on the PGA Tour. And anything longer than that, if it's 250, 255, 260, these guys are hitting their 5 woods or their 7 woods or whatever the hell it is. So what they want is they want to be able to hit that club, and they want it to go straight in the air. So they're not worried about maneuverability and this and that. They just want to hit big high nukes up there, that aren't going to underspin, that are going to land. They're going to land like this, straight down so the ball stops. So that's why you're seeing so many of those irons go into play. But if you go across the line of the players that have won with Srixon irons this year, Novak, Straka, Keegan Bradley, Ryan Fox, JJ Spawn, another perfect Srixon player, Steep, hits a cut. There's a reason why they're in that iron, because it's the perfect iron. Like, if I was going to pick a player that's not on the Srixon staff, that probably, actually, this would be kind of a fun experiment. I'll tell you 3 players that I think would respond well to Srixon irons with a soul. I think Xander would be a great V-Soul player. I think Nico Højgaard would be a great Z-Soul player. I think Wyndham Clark would be a great Z-Soul player. Or V-Soul, not Z-Soul, V-Soul. Which something I always think about, like, what players would like hit what irons? That's the kind of player that you're looking for. Somebody that really like stays on top of it, comes down, like really interacts with the turf. I mean, hell, Tiger in some cases, like fully Tiger would have been an optimal like V-Soul player. He would have been amazing. Like, you're seeing what Phil did to his irons. Go look at Phil's irons. I took pictures. They're on my IG. This V-Soul. And he carved it in himself. Like, it already kind of had it in there, and he went in there and filled the shit out of it. Now it's like that. Very, very cool stuff. But congratulations to Srixon. Robbie Waters and Rodney and all those guys on that, on that truck they're amazing guys, and they work really, really hard. And Will and Jolly, and they got a good crew over there. But the other thing about the Srixon thing is all the focus is on the irons. And I remember I was out at the U.S. Open, and I was talking to Ryan Fox and his caddy Dean, and I'd never really seen their fairwoods before. So I went up to them and said, "Hey, can I get a video of your 3-wood that you hit to 2 feet in the Canadian Open?" And he's like, "Yeah, look at it." And I set it down. I'm like, "This thing's fucking amazing." Like, do they sell these? I had when it comes to Srixon, I pay attention to the Cleveland wedges, and I pay attention to the irons. I knew they sold woods. Like, I obviously knew that they sold metal woods, but I'd never really seen them. Like, I never seen one like set one down, because they don't push them. They don't talk about them. They don't, like, when was the last time you saw like a Srixon driver commercial? But Ryan Fox had this like tour only diamond driver, which I thought was a beautiful looking driver. And then he had this 3-wood. The 3-wood looks amazing. It's a little bit larger. It's got kind of a deeper face. It has a little bit of that rhombo kind of camber in the sole. It's a cool 3-wood. And I was like, you guys should, like, this is why don't you start digging into these things? You guys could be like a full bag company pretty quick. You make great wedges, great irons. Like, these metal woods are sick. So I don't know. I don't know if they don't push them because the marketplace is just too competitive with the big companies in there. Who knows? But they make really, really cool metal woods. And to that point, and I get this question a lot. I'm going to pivot. I'm going to do a quick pivot here. I have to, because I got this question the other day. There is a lot of great, like, you take LA Golf, for example, and their driver. The LA Golf thing is really, really cool. And they're doing some very, very, very cool stuff with the mapping of the face of that driver and everything. And the driver, to me, I have one at home. It's a beautiful looking driver. But people say, well, like, does it compare to a Callaway, or does it compare to a TaylorMade? This is where it starts to get tricky. The one thing that these smaller companies have, and I'll say LA Golf, smaller company, or maybe I can even throw Srixon in there as like a smaller driver company. You are up against You're not up against marketing machines, because people say, well, they just don't market them. Like, they just don't have the marketing spend. The awareness isn't there. You're not up against the marketing machines. You're up against their R&D budgets and history and everything that they can do. So when you're competing against Callaway and TaylorMade and Ping and Titleist, which are basically the big four in the driver category, you are basically walking into a casino and you're sitting down at a table with guys that have $50 million in chips and you have $5 million in chips. So unless you get lucky or do something really clever, like come up with, like I always use vibranium, like all of a sudden you're making a driver out of vibranium and things just unbelievably fast, you got no chance, because you have years and years and years and billions of dollars of R&D, research, testing to break into the driver game and basically do what Sam Hahn's done at Lab in the putter game. Putter's different, totally different animal, because it's not a speed contest. It's different. It's not a speed and dispersion contest and MOI and blah, 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 blah. The driver thing is very, very hard to break into, because the competition and the people that you're fighting against have so much muscle and so many smart people, it's impossible. And I'll say it out loud. If you're a company and you're trying to bust into the driver market with like your great idea, I'm sure your idea is fucking incredible. Probably the smartest idea out there. But to make it global, to make it compete day in, day out, year in, year out, it takes a ton of dough, a ton of smart people, and you have to be able to have a budget that allows you to make no concessions. Like, this driver can do this, but it's a little bit lacking here. Like when Callaway and TaylorMade, these guys are coming up with drivers, when they sit there right before launch, they go, yep, it's fastest we've done, most forgiving we've done, love the look, tour testing was amazing, blah, 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 blah. That is a heavy lift for a small company. I've seen it go down. I've been involved in it. I've been in the mix. I've been right in the mud for years on that stuff. I'm just telling you right now, it's hard. Doesn't mean you can't go out and buy a really awesome driver from a smaller company. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I get the question, how does this match up? Maybe on a day, it might work out. Maybe for a month, you might have it and be like, I'm driving the hell out of this. This is the best driver I've ever had. I'm talking about over time to break into the marketplace and really make a mark and be a contender in the marketplace. It takes a shitload of money and takes a shitload of smart people. More smart people than it does even money. Like, you have to have the talent to do that. And these are teams of people versus, big teams of people versus small teams of people. I need to say that out loud so that the consumer can understand how this works. So again, doesn't mean you can't go buy the LA Golf driver or even the Srixon driver or whatever, and it won't just hold up and be amazing. It's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying that if you want to understand how the market works, like what these smaller companies are up against, especially when it comes to drivers, that's what they're up against. Golf ball, I can say the same thing. It took Callaway to compete with Titleist, which is just an absolute juggernaut in the golf, and for good reason. They make amazing golf balls. Their golf balls are incredible. You have to spend to compete. And again, can people make balls that compete in a fitting bay and go, our ball's just as good as yours, you should buy ours? Sure, 100%. But you're also up against a company that can go, oh, they did that, well, we're going to go do this, because we have the ability to just go, oh, you did match us on that one. Cool. We're going to go with our $200 million R&D budget over here in the corner for 2 seconds, and we're going to come out with something that you're going to have to chase again and again and again and again, and you're in. And that's how you hold market shares, because you've done 50, 60 years of work, of R&D work, and billions of dollars of investment. That's what it gets you. So can somebody catch up to you on a one day? Sure. But the next battle, that big company's coming with a nuke. Like, and you still have like your AK. Different game. So anyway, if you want to like how it works, that's how it works. I'm sorry, I kind of want to rant there, but like, this is interesting stuff. If you guys want to know like the inside baseball stuff, that's kind of how it is. We're going to be doing our what's in the bag this week, and I'm not going to spoil it, but I'm going to give you a couple little nuggets. Very, 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 very impressed with the Titleist product. this year. No, they're not sponsoring this podcast, and they're like I went and I hit a bunch of stuff. You guys know, if you follow me on Instagram, you know I hit pinks, like, and I loved it all. If I'm being super honest, I loved everything I hit. Loved. There wasn't anything I was like, I liked it all. And I'm talking right now specifically to irons. The one thing that I did, and it's unfair, but I did it because I had to. And I think I said this in a live or a podcast or something. I think I did a podcast a couple weeks ago. I had to put all my Callaway stuff in the garage. I had to forget it existed. And for this year, it's unfair to Callaway, my previous employer. I had to, because I wasn't giving anything else a fair shake. Like, total honesty moment, just wasn't. I'd hit stuff and then I'd go right back to my TCBs. I'd hit a driver and go, yeah, but this Callaway one does this. So I literally had to put it, I mean, that means golf ball too. I had to put it all into the garage, forget it existed, and really start testing stuff with an open mind. I am very, very impressed with what Titleist is doing. That GT2 driver is, if you guys haven't hit the GT2 yet, my God, man, that driver's awesome. Like that driver answers every question. And people will say, well, yeah, I hit it, but it just spun too much. You can make it non-spinny. Trust me. There's things you can do to that thing, even without one weight port in the back, but there's things that you can do to that driver to make it an absolute monster. Very, very, very impressed with that. Super impressed with this R7 mini driver. Of all the mini drivers I've hit, what I'm always looking for is how easy is it for me to hit this thing off the ground? That one's really easy to hit off the ground. It goes, and I have it, and with the weight ports on it, what you can do, like I have mine weighted to hit nothing but spinny draws, and it's amazing. I love it. I think I've hit it 10 times in the golf course and hit 9 bangers. Like, that's a good golf club. Really impressed with TaylorMade's fairway woods in general. Really impressed with Ping hybrids. You'll see some Ping hybrids in there. These T100 irons, I'm not going to go too far into it. T100 irons I thought the last T100s were sick. These ones are amazing. I'll explain the differences. We'll get to that when I explain what's in the bag. Vokey wedges are Vokey wedges. Very, very hard to beat. What do I need to say there? I was very impressed. I was actually really impressed with the PXG wedges, and I was super impressed with the Ping wedges. Ping wedges are sick. They don't get the love that they deserve. The Ping wedges are really, really good. Obviously, Cleveland wedges are amazing. And then putters. I mean, I think I explained the lab thing to you guys last time. But of course, right when I don't want to say gave up on lab for me, Sam launches this new putter in Detroit that's not center shafted. Like, I'd already moved on. I'm like, okay, I can't do the lap thing. Everybody else, all the cool kids get to do the lap thing, but I don't, because I can't fucking hit the hole from 10 feet. And then he comes out with this thing. So now I'm like, okay, I guess I need this new lab putter. I got to go down that. And I'd broken up with my jailbird for a month to try lab, and I like rekindled that relationship, and I might have to break up with it again to go try this lab again. And those are the only 2 putters I'm really interested in right now, is the putter that I have and this lab thing. I think the TaylorMade ZT looks amazing. I just can't do the center shafted thing. I just don't. Like, one of the putters I'm curious to try at some point is the Spider, the Tour Spider, kind of the one that Scotty uses. That's a cool looking putter. I actually had one back when I was at WRX, something similar to it. I think those are great putters, but the ones that piqued my interest are this new lab that I saw on pictures of WRX, and then the putter that I have. Everything else to me, I've tried Scotty Cameron putters in the past. I've had some bangers, still do. I have 2 of them. I have the Duval one, and I have the Scotty Dale from years back. Still have them, but those are collector's items. I think probably 20 years ago, I got my hands on a Tri-Hot Odyssey and putted with it forever, and I just kind of been into the Odyssey thing ever since then. Before I worked for him, like the white hot insert was like kind of my jam. So I'm biased. I apologize, but I'm just telling you the truth. When it comes to putters, I'm always going to lean towards that white hot or micro hinge insert, because I think it's the greatest thing since stuffed crust pizza. Okay, let me go through Keegan's bag really quickly. Some interesting things that you might want to, that you may have not noticed. So He's in the G430. I'm going to explain why guys keep going back to 430 here in a second. So his G430 driver, 10.5. He's got a Ventus Black, I think 6X shaft. Then he goes to QI10, 16.5 HL3 wood. I think he had an Aldo Rogue shaft in his 3 wood. Actually, he does. And then he goes into the QI10. I believe I think it's a 5 wood. 5 wood with a Ventus Black 8X. Then he goes 4 iron in the ZXI 5, 5 iron in the ZXI 5, and then 7 through 9. And then he's got the blade pitching wedge, which is kind of cool. Then he's got the wedge. He's got the Cleveland wedges, and he's got the Jailbird AI1 putter. Quick little nugget on his bag, and people that ask a lot, like, why don't the ping players that play the 430 play the 410? A lot of it's look. So, and I can say that for Hovland. I can say that for Neiman. I can say that for Keegan Bradley. And it's not a technology thing. It's a look thing. So when you set down certain drivers, so like the 430, if we're going to use that just as an example, because of the crown and because of the top line and how it looks, what I've heard and what I've seen is the 440, because of how it looks to certain players, doesn't look like it has enough loft, even though it does. So he might hand them a driver that's 10.5 and it lasers out at 10.5, exact same spec as the 430. But when you set it down, it doesn't appear to have as much loft to your eye. A lot of these players out on the PGA Tour want to see loft. That's why you see so many 16.5, 3 woods, this and that. Like, you hand a player a club that doesn't look like it has enough loft, they're not afraid to hit it right. They're afraid to hit it left because they're going to overcorrect to get the ball up in the air. Instinctively, like, well, I feel like I have to help this up. And if I help it up, I'm going to get flippy at the bottom and the ball's going to go that way. But if I see loft, then I feel like I can cover it. I can get the club into the ground. I can, get my angle of attack in a good spot, good, comfortable spot, and I can hit it straight with a cut, soft draw, do whatever I want to do. So seeing loft is important for a lot of players. So when you see guys that stay in the 430 or go to the 430 or whatever, a lot of that's because that head, the appearance of it shows more loft than the 440 does. That's what I've heard. That's the feedback. When I set them down, the 2 of them down, because I have both of them, I don't see the difference. But I'm also not Keegan Bradley or Jocko Neiman. I'm just like normal dude. I can see loft and tell the difference really a lot with fairway woods. I can really understand when a player's like, I set it down, I don't see enough loft. Driver for me is a little tougher, especially with ping drivers, because to me, when I set them down, they kind of have a very distinct look. Maybe it's just the black face or whatever. But when you see guys stay in a club like that, like even Vic Hovland with 425, some of that could be launch. The 440 platforms just launch a little higher by nature. But a lot of it's just the ability to see loft. So, Jocko Neiman had the 440 in the bag and then went back to 430. A lot of it's because when he sets the 430 down, he can still see loft. That's why that happens. Anyway, they're in Detroit this week. Great event. Love the Detroit event. Love the people that run the Detroit event. The whole city comes together for that event. I wish that was an elevated event and in a better time of the year. It would get a better field. That's a great event. Detroit Golf Club's amazing. And there's certain events where the neighborhood or the community really come together and take it seriously with some care and love. Detroit's like that. The Rocket, like, they get really behind that tournament. And I would love to see, it's one of those tournaments, like, I would love to see get its due, like get make it an elevated event or something. Like, it's a great event. And I always liked it too, because I could always drive there from Toronto. It's like a 3-hour drive from Toronto. But obviously I'm in Dallas this week, so didn't go to the Rocket. But anyway, coming up this week, obviously we have Live Dallas. We're going to be doing some fun stuff on the range with Charlie Howell, Graham McDowell. Trying to get Bryson to do something for me, which you guys will love if I can get him to do it. Supposed to talk to him today. It's actually like 8 in the morning here on Wednesday, so I'm going to sneak off and go get ready to go to the golf course. But we got that. doing a ton of filming with Rombo and Hatton and Waco Neiman for the golf.com platform. Dylan DeShear's got some fun stuff that he's doing here. It's going to be a great week. It's going to be a great week. And obviously we got Scottish in the Open Championship coming up. I will not be on site this year for the first time in like 5 years, but I'm actually quite happy to stay home because getting to Ireland logistically is a pain in the ass. So that's kind of it for Fully Equipped for this episode 291. Do you know what I want to know from you guys? If you guys watch this on YouTube, in the comments, what is your preferred format for this show? Do you like Johnny Wunder talking head, just talking shit for an hour? Do you like the three amigos? Do you like, Wade, Chris, and Jack all in one shot? Do you like it when I bring guests on? Like I'm like now coming into this golf.com thing and having some control and some vision about where I want this podcast and maybe another podcast to go. Even trying to figure out my own podcast that I would like to do that's a little bit more personal to me. I'm curious to see if you guys like the format. Like, what format do you guys prefer? And what do you guys want to hear? Do you want like current events or do you want to talk about some old shit? Like, I want to know. You can find me at Johnny_Wunder on Instagram. That's my main social media platform. But hope you liked episode 291 of Fully Equipped. I hope you guys have a great week. It's going to be an awesome week in golf. A lot of fun stuff happening. And obviously we have a big, nice run coming up here in the next 3 weeks with the Scottish in the Open Championship. So golf is going to be quite fun for the next couple months. We still got the playoffs and all that stuff coming up too. So it's Johnny Wunder from the Airbnb in Dallas. You guys have a great rest of the week. We're out of here.